Trump canceled his meeting with Democratic leaders, ran away from the opportunity of sitting down with them to discuss funding. I think October 1st is the funding deadline, and if an agreement isn't made between Democrats and Republicans to keep the government funded, then it will shut down. We're having that thing again, but there's some different aspects to it. I'll show you Trump's response, his justification for canceling this meeting, and what Democrats are demanding. But here's the headline: Trump cancels meeting with Democratic leaders, deepening risk of government shutdown as funding deadline looms. When I was on the damage report, we discussed Democrats' claims. And so let me play this for you, then we'll look at Trump's response.
So here's what they want. They call themselves the majority Democrats, this group. They say they want to reverse the cuts to Medicaid in the one big beautiful bill. They want to replace the law's tax cuts with a tax cut for the bottom 99%. They want to eliminate the Trump administration's tariffs. They want the restoration of cops grants. They want the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files and a ban on members of Congress trading stock as part of an effort to root out corruption in the government. And that is admittedly a lengthy list of demands. So much so that even I'm like, that seems like a lot, man. I don't think you're going to get that. I don't think they're going to get any of that. But I like that they're asking for it. Luke, what do you make of this?
Well, okay. Well, 2 points. First, great. We have to, as meaningless as it feels to call it out, we have to still call out the hypocrisy. I love how he goes, it's so weird. They're like bringing in other unrelated issues as a part of a demands list. But then you think back to the Biden administration when they're like, yeah, we'll help you fund the government if you'll give us the border bill that we want, if you'll get rid of all of the green energy initiatives, if you'll defund the IRS, if you'll get rid of the Inflation Reduction Act altogether, and if you'll ban non-binary people from the world. And then for them to now go, it's just strange. It's just kind of strange they would ask for things in return for their support is obviously hypocritical, but I do think both parties do the performative shock that the other side has demands. The point too is I'm so relieved that Democrats are finally doing something with the little power that they do have. And I do credit them with that, because if we think back to the last time the funding extension was a debate, and Chuck Schumer got a lot of flack because he helped to get it across the finish line. And my big criticism was not that I didn't sympathize with why Schumer didn't want the government to shut down, but that Democrats waited to push themselves into the conversation until like 3 days before the deadline. And my argument was, before the deadline, lay out what is needed for your support. And then even if you don't get a single one of the things on that checklist, with all the news right now, I don't think this is going to be a huge story, but it at least provides an opportunity for the national discourse to be about how Democrats want to get the Medicaid cuts out, Medicaid cuts, Epstein, Medicaid, Epstein. And that's a much more effective fight, even if it's just a messaging for important things. And then obviously if they can get some concession, that would be beneficial as well. But the fact that we're just now getting what is the most obvious, coherent political strategy from a minority party is strange, but hey, good job. So the idea there is not that they're going to get, as you heard both John and I acknowledge, all of the things on that list. I don't know if that's still the list they're working with. This was a little while ago, but I love that they put on the list, we'll help you fund the government. You release the Epstein files. Sure, we'll help you, Don. We'll do it, just a tiny thing. Epstein files? But then also other big ones, they're not going to get Trump to remove all of his tariffs. It's still good to put that on the list. Why? Because whatever I brought up, at least the national discussion about why Democrats are holding off on supporting the Republican funding is we're trying to prevent his inflation increasing tariffs, and we're trying to roll back the insane draconian cuts to Medicaid, and we want the Epstein files to come out, come out. And that is a really important usage of a rare time where they do have some power, because in the Senate, they're going to need Democratic votes. I'll show you Chuck Schumer in a second, but here's Trump saying, after reviewing the details of this unserious and ridiculous demands being made by the minority radical left Democrats in return for their votes to keep our thriving country open, I have decided that, the whole country doesn't get shut down. The government, the non-essential services, but just the country. I have decided that an undocumented immigrant, like I'm just picturing like pulls up to the shores of America. There's a closed sign. I've decided that no meeting with the sorry, one more time. They come up and there's a back in 15 minutes sign on America. I have decided that no meeting with their congressional leaders could possibly be productive. They're threatening to shut down the government of the United States unless they can have. And then he goes on to lie a bunch. No need to read that. He justifies his $1 trillion. He even puts the number, $1 trillion in new spending to continue free healthcare for illegal aliens. That's a lie. We've gone through the math there over and over that the $1 trillion in the next decade being ripped away from Medicaid because of Trump's bill is going to rip millions of American citizens off of their healthcare. Desperate people relying on that coverage. And so he lies a bunch about that. He says they're, turning everyone transgender. I didn't see that on the list. 50% of Americans must be transgender to fund the government. And 30% of mice, as Trump fearmongered about as well. And then I didn't even read all this. Men and women's sports, transgender, that wasn't a part of their list. Transgender surgeries, something about his own name, etc. So he's saying, I don't even want to meet with them. I don't want to talk with them. And it's their fault if the government shuts down. What's funny, there's always a clip. Trump, back during Obama's presidency, said even if Republicans are at fault for a government shutdown, everyone's going to blame the president.
The interesting thing is in 25 years and 50 years and 100 years from now, when the government is, when they talk about the government shutdown, they're going to be talking about the president of the United States. Who was the president at that time? Mm-hmm. They're not going to be talking who the head of the House was, the head of the Senate, who's running things in Washington. They're going to be talking about during the Obama administration. Sure. It was a disaster.
So if he uses that same logic now, even if he says the Democrats are to blame, then he believes Americans will go on to blame him for a shutdown, especially when it is him who is not wanting to engage. Biden negotiated out the wazoo, you might remember, with Kevin McCarthy. That's where the Kevin McCarthy anecdote came up of, oh my gosh, it was so scary, Biden's cognitive decline. It was really scary. Really, hear me on this, Martha, Sandra. He offered me cookies. Yeah. Cookies, chocolate chip cookies. He was gone. He made cookies for me. Gone. I don't know why. 25th Amendment. Like, that was his story about how that was concerning to him. And he showed me the pool. Just sick. He's a real sicko, that Joe Biden. But they were negotiating a lot. And Trump is the one backing out of even negotiating. This is how it goes. Now, I don't want a government shutdown. Those are really bad. I also believe Democrats have to leverage their power here. It's a rare opportunity where they have some. Now, I got to be honest. Do I feel the utmost confidence in Chuck Schumer to manage the situation properly? No, I don't. Here's him saying, Trump, meet with us.
Let's talk about what's happening on the Hill. It looks like we may be moving toward a government shutdown. Can that be averted?
I hope it can. We Democrats definitely want to avert a shutdown. We know how bad it is. And we're asking something very simple, Joe, for the president to sit down and talk with us. He's not the king. He can't just dictate what happened. He said he doesn't need Democrats. Well, then he doesn't know how to count, because there are 60 votes in this Senate that you need to pass this, and he's got 53. And frankly, when I was majority leader for 4 years, the last 4, we didn't have a shutdown. Why? Because I sat down and talked with Republicans and we compromised. No one got everything they wanted. Donald Trump is the first president we're having a shutdown. As you saw, Hakeem Jeffries and I just made a simple, easy request. Sit down and talk to us. We can probably come to some agreements. There are a lot of people on his side who are upset about what's happening.
Okay, so I agree. I don't know why the messaging doesn't. It's not enough. He's about to go on to mention healthcare. Thank you, but that should be every. You know how Trump was like, They're coming across the border. They're coming across the border. Hi, I'm Trump. They're coming across the border. Oh, Melania is my wife. I'm coming across the border. They're coming across and it's like, and then now his latest slide, I've ended 7 wars. I've ended 7 wars. So then people just, I'm reducing drug prices by 1,000%. I'm ending drug prices by 1,000%. Hannibal Lecter, he would just boom, boom, boom. So then people, you can't go through your life if you even have turned on one news station and not have heard one of Trump's talking points. Similarly, Chuck needs to just pound the same drum. It needs to be, as you heard in the damage report clip. By the way, while we continue through this, it just popped in my mind. Please do click the subscribe button if you appreciate the show to keep up with what's going on, hopefully in a way that's somewhat fun sometimes. But as you heard me say, it should be, he's ripping away your healthcare, Epstein, healthcare, Epstein, Medicaid cuts. All we're asking for, don't say all we're asking for is to sit down. We just want to hang out with him. He never wants to hang. He didn't even offer us cookies. It shouldn't be that. It should be, he's taking away your health care and we're not going to stand for it. How could we possibly vote for the extension of a government that is screwing over all of you to give even more money to the wealthiest? They're taking your money to give to the wealthiest while they're not releasing the Epstein files. Boom, 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 boom. Every single second. None of this, I want to sit down with him. Donald. It just doesn't. Now, he does bring up healthcare, so let me play that part.
On some of the areas of healthcare, particularly the ACA, but others as well. Just sit and talk with us. So he did say yes. He didn't tell us, but, his press person said yes. And then a day later, yesterday, he says no. And he has this rant about radical Democrats. Is it radical to want people not to have their premiums go up $400 a month, $5,000 a year? Is it radical to tell a mother whose child has cancer that you're not getting treatment anymore and you're going to watch your child die? No, it's not radical. And 68% of Americans think that this big bad bill was wrong on health care. And it's all the Democrats, 2/3 or 3/4 of the Republicans, but of the independents, but 1/3 of the Republicans. So all he's got to do is sit down and talk. It's such a simple request, and I think the American people understand.
So again, he does bring up the correct points. Premiums going up, costs going up, healthcare being taken away, but it still is kind of like, this is unpopular, and we just want to talk. Make it all we're saying, and we'll help you fund the government, is roll back your draconian attack on the working class in the interest of the wealthiest, and plus Epstein files. Just make it real. Make it so that people don't go, oh, he just wants to meet. I guess he just really wants to meet. They can negotiate. They can do a common ground between a horrible reverse Robin Hood bill and like something more rational somewhere in the middle. Make very clear what it is that you're saying over and over and over again. I don't need to hear any polling data. I don't need to hear any data about anything. I don't need to hear any numbers. Just the clear, concise talking points on that, because they're real. And right now, Democrats clearly, whatever they're doing is not working. This shocked me, this headline. Republicans mop the floor with Democrats on the economy and immigration in stunning fall. So you're probably confused because you're thinking, what? I thought Luke talked about how unpopular Republican policies were getting, how unpopular Trump's. True, but somehow Democrats find a way to not, in a side-by-side, come out looking great, which doesn't make any sense. If you compare the policy record of the Democrats when they had all the power to the Republicans, there is no comparison. But that's where things are. So we got to see something mixed up, and Schumer was asked about this.
And one more point on all those polls. Even though Democrats' numbers are low, when you ask people, who do you prefer, a Democratic senator or a Republican senator? We did it in the 6 battleground states, which were +2, +3 overall. So it's not a Democratic or independent survey. 47-39, they prefer Democrats. And in a couple of the races where we have the 2 candidates, we win. So.
Okay, so I think that was the wrong clip. But yeah, I mean, again, and then there's polling of, on a generic ballot, Democrats are narrowly ahead for a congressional hypothetical matchup. That's good. But on certain issues, still somehow that Trump's ruining, they haven't regained the trust on those issues. Democrats haven't yet. And like I hear what he's saying. It is a weird message though to be like, no. Hey, I get it. People don't like us, but they really don't like Trump. It's like, kind of, yeah. That's kind of the right message. But the underlying reason, it's not true that the facts make that conclusion make any sense. I agree with that. For all my criticism of Democrats, it makes no sense that people would still favor on the economy, especially with the centuries-long track record of this also not making any sense, Republicans over Democrats. And that's just one poll, and I just read the headline. But even if it's detached from what would make sense, you have to contend with this huge loss of trust from Democrats of their voters. And that needs to be worked on. And I think a part of it is just the messengers have lost the trust. The Chuck Schumers have just lost the trust of a lot of people. And so I don't foresee a leadership change. But in the meantime, that messaging I don't think is it, Chuck. What the Chuck? Chuck this, Chuck. Like we could do all these configurations. They're really fun. You can play around. Just play around with it, Jaden. We'll circle back to it.